Hello and welcome to another episode of the J Sports NFL Show. I'm your host, Joshua Nowakowski. Happy to be here with you today. So the wild card round has wrapped up as the Vikings versus Rams game has just ended. So without further ado, let's get straight into the recap of Wild Card Weekend. Before we get started on this episode and get right into the recaps, I'm sure if you can tell by watching, yes, I do have my microphone. I'm actually going to move it that way a little bit. I do have my mic on me, camera as well, so I hope this looks a lot better than the first episode. I hope it sounds a lot better than the first episode as well. So please let me know how it sounds, how it looks, any improvements. Always open to suggestions, but excited that I was able to get the adapters and everything that I needed for the microphone, and super happy that I have the microphone now because I hope the audio sounds a lot better than it did in the first episode. But that's all I had to say for that. So let's get straight into Wildcard Weekend recap. Our first matchup of Wildcard Weekend was for the Chargers versus the Texans game in me oh my. I should have picked with my heart in this game as the Texans end up running away with this one, winning 32 over the Chargers. The first half is where the Chargers had so many missed opportunities, specifically in the first quarter, where they had to settle for 2 field goals, but they were able to carry a 6-0 lead after the first quarter. The Texans' offense finally came to life after going on a 14-play, 99-yard drive that had an incredible 34-yard pass from C.J. Stroud on third down off of a weird bounce off of the snap. Stroud picks it up, runs towards the sideline, throws the ball, 34-yard pass to keep the drive alive. That drive would end in a Nico Collins touchdown with just under 1 minute left till halftime. But the Texans were not done in the first half. After a quick 3-and-out from the Chargers, the Texans get the ball back, 27 seconds left, and a huge 27-yard scramble from quarterback C.J. Stroud that set up the Texans to get a field goal and take a halftime lead of 10-6. Second half, that's where the game kind of started to get out of hand, and that one was all Texans as their defense came to life, caused 3 turnovers alone in the second half, including a pick 6 by Eric Murphy. The Chargers did try to rally late with an 86-yard touchdown by Ladd McConkey, but it was too little, too late, and a late Joe Mixon touchdown secured the 32-12 victory for the Texans. Starting on the Chargers side of things, that was a stunning performance from Justin Herbert, and stunning in not a great way. He goes 14 of 32, 242 yards, 1 touchdown, and 4 interceptions. He had 3 all regular season. He threw 4 in this game alone. That kind of just tells you the story of the game, as he was never really able to get going. He threw 3 interceptions in the second half. As they got down, tried to force the ball, threw some interceptions there. But that was, and I did say it when we did the predictions. I talked about Justin Herbert, only 3 interceptions all regular season. I called him a top 5 quarterback, so if you want to call me the jinx, I'm the jinx. Maybe I jinxed Justin Herbert, but yeah, that was, I don't think, the performance we expected from him in that playoff game against the Texans. And then on top of that, the running game wasn't really helping the Chargers. They could never really get the run game going, as J.K. Dobbins led the team in rushing with 26 yards. The lone bright spot in this Chargers offense, however, was Ladd McConkey. He grabbed 9 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown. Defensively, the Chargers honestly played well. I know that you're going to look and see, wow, 32 points. Dang, what happened? They played really well. If you watch that game and you look at that game, they forced 1 interception, 2 fumble recoveries, but their offense really just wasn't able to capitalize on the opportunities the defense made for them. The Chargers defense played I thought they played really well in that game when you watch it. Defense kept them in that game for a long time, and they kept giving the Chargers offense opportunities, and Herbert and the offense weren't really able to make much of those opportunities. Now, on the other side, Houston Texans, very, very slow start offensively, but they were able to put together some solid drives when they needed to. Now, quarterback CJ Stroud goes 22 of 33, 282 yards, one touchdown, one interception, and added 42 yards on the ground. Now, that is the most rushing yards from CJ Stroud in a game since week 9, and that was, I believe, against the New York Jets. Nico Collins absolutely shined in the spotlight with 122 receiving yards and a touchdown. Now, their defense is what won Houston this game. 4 interceptions forced by this defense. 2 of those interceptions were by Derek Stingley, showing why he is one of the best young corners in all the NFL, as well as getting pressure to Justin Herbert and making him uncomfortable in the pocket. Now, if you listen to my first episode where I did my predictions, I gave a key to victory, or key to the game, if you will, for both sides. One for the Chargers, one for the Texans. So during my recaps, I'm also going to recap my keys to victory, or my keys to the game, and see how those played out. If I was correct in my assessment, if I wasn't, I think it's something fun we could do. So let's start with my keys to victory here. For the Chargers, their key to victory was Joe Alt versus Danielle Hunter. Now, and limiting how much pressure Hunter brings to Justin Herbert. Well, Alt didn't line up all that much against Danielle Hunter, but Hunter finished the game. He had one quarterback hit, but it was actually Will Anderson and Mario Edwards on the interior who were able to get to Justin Herbert. They both each had 1.5 sacks. So that key didn't really happen per se, just because Hunter wasn't lined up against all that much. He was mostly lined up against Rashawn Slater during that game. The Texans' key to victory was giving CJ Stroud time to throw, and that is exactly what they did. Stroud was sacked only 3 times to Herbert's 4, and his O-line was effective enough that Stroud was able to extend many plays with his feet. If you look at the game and you're a Texans fan and you go, look, Justin Herbert's going to get sacked more times than CJ Stroud, you're probably thinking, wow, our defense was probably flying all over the field. They probably got 6, 7 sacks, Stroud right behind. But no, that offensive line held up. They did a really good job against that Chargers defensive line. They gave Stroud plenty of time in the pocket to go through his reads, go through his progressions. And then when it wasn't there, what did CJ do? Boom, he took off on his feet and made the right decisions with his feet as well, having some big runs during that game. And yeah, only being sacked 3 times, that was huge and crucial in Houston's victory. Houston gets the upset and moves on to the AFC divisional round. Now, our next game was Saturday night, as the Baltimore Ravens really had no problem taking care of the Pittsburgh Steelers, winning by a final score of 28-14. The scoring was started by Rashad Bateman, who caught a 15-yard pass from quarterback Lamar Jackson going on, and then as the game neared halftime, the Ravens scored not 1, but 2 touchdowns in the final 5 minutes. First by Derrick Henry with an 8-yard rush, and then Justice Hill caught an 11-yard receiving touchdown from Lamar, and that was with only 11 seconds left in the half. Steelers tried to grab any momentum they could get, and after a 30-yard Van Jefferson touchdown from quarterback Russell Wilson, but that momentum was quickly just sucked out of the air as Derrick Henry took a 44-yard rush to the house, adding another touchdown for the Baltimore Ravens, making it 21-7. However, the Steelers would respond, and another 36-yard touchdown pass from to George Pickens, but that would be the last time either team would score. Sorry, I meant 28-7 after the touchdown from Derrick Henry, his second of the game. So then George Pickens, 36-yard touchdown. but that would be the last time either team scored, as no points were scored in the final quarter. Now, Lamar Jackson, he goes 16 of 21, 175 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and also adds 81 yards on the ground. Derrick Henry had himself, what a day Derrick Henry had, let me tell you. 86 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. He absolutely torched this Mike Tomlin defense. Speaking of Mike Tomlin, let's go to the Steelers side. Russell Wilson, he goes 20 of 9, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns. Honestly, a very solid game from the veteran quarterback. He was forced to have to throw the ball a lot because they got down early, but he played pretty well. I mean, when you look at it, he played pretty well in my opinion. Throwing almost 300 yards, had a couple of touchdowns, didn't make any mistakes. But sadly, the Steelers' rush game was practically non-existent, with a team total of 29 rushing yards as a team. You can't do that and win playoff games. Frankly, you can't rush for 29 total yards as a team and expect to win games, let alone expect to beat a team like the Baltimore Ravens. Now, that 29 rushing yards was in part to getting down early, and I realized they had to pass a lot, but you still got to have some sort of rush game if you think you're going to have a chance at beating a playoff team, beating this Ravens team. Now, what exactly were my keys to the game for this one? For the Ravens, I said they need to win on third down, get themselves into third and manageable offensively, and that's exactly what they did. I mean, the Ravens go 10 for 15 on third down, so they go 66% on third down. Steelers go 5 for 11, only 45% on third down. So the Ravens did what they had to by managing, by getting themselves into manageable situations on first and second down. So it was third and short, third and manageable, and they were able to get and convert on these third downs at a really high rate. 10 of 15, that's a great rate on third down conversions. I think the Ravens would be happy if they did that every week. So the Ravens were able to win third down. Meanwhile, the Steelers, what did I say was their key to victory? Limiting the run game. Oh me, oh my. Did they not do that at all? At all, they did not do that. So, in my predictions episode, I went over the Steelers' 2 games against the Ravens in the regular season. In the win over the Ravens in Week 11, they gave up 124 total rushing yards. When it's Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, you live with those numbers. In their Week 16 loss, they gave up 220 rushing yards. You don't love to see that number. That, you live with the 120. 220 is where you get into the danger zone. Saturday night, this astonishing number. Saturday night, they gave up the most rushing yards they had given up all season long, to a whopping 299 rushing yards. I'm at a loss for words, really, thinking about that. You think of these Mike Tomlin gritty defenses that are, pride themselves in being a tough team in the trenches, stopping the run, being a menace on defense. And each game against the Ravens, their defense progressively got worse. And Saturday it was on full display. I mean, this game, all I can say to add to it was complete domination by the Ravens. They move on to the AFC divisional round after defeating the Steelers. Now, our third matchup Sunday morning was between the Denver Broncos and the Buffalo Bills, which saw the Bills win in what turned out to be a blowout 31-7. Now, this game got off to a hot start for Denver. They scored just over 2 minutes into the game with a 43-yard Troy Franklin touchdown from quarterback Bo Nix. I know I was watching the game with my dad, and we're sitting there watching the game thinking, hey, Denver's got a good defense. Maybe they can keep things close. And then they get the ball, and 2 minutes in, boom, touchdown. And my dad looked at me. He was like, ooh, we might have a game on our hands. Sadly, that was all the scoring the Broncos could muster in that game, as Buffalo's defense really did lock in after that. A Tyler Bass field goal and a James Cook rushing touchdown saw the Bills take a 10-7 lead into halftime. And this is where I think we saw kind of a shift in the game. Right before halftime, Denver misses a 50-yard field goal at the end of the half. And yeah, that's really when you just saw the Broncos lose any momentum they could have grabbed at that moment by that missed kick by Will Lutz. I mean, you go into, okay, make this 50-yarder. It's 10-10. It's going into halftime. I know Buffalo starts out with the ball second half, but hey, we're tied at halftime with one of the top dogs in the AFC. You live with that with your rookie quarterback, Bo Nix. Unfortunately, Will Lutz hooks it a little bit, and I believe it was the left post that he hit the left post, doinked it down, misses it, and all of a sudden you go into halftime, you're down, and the Broncos and the Bills, I should say, and the Bills are starting with the ball on the second half. Third quarter saw a Tyler Bass field goal and then an incredible 24-yard touchdown from running back Ty Johnson on 4th and 1 on a pass from Josh Allen. Allen was able to extend this play, get out of the pocket, move around, make time for his receivers, and he made a great throw and gave Johnson a chance in the back of the end zone. And my goodness, he made an excellent grab. I mean, that was an excellent catch by Ty Johnson. I know at first when I saw it, I thought that might be incomplete. He may have been out of bounds. It was super close. What a catch. I mean, what a catch. Then if the game wasn't out of hand yet, Curtis Samuel scores a 55-yard touchdown, again from quarterback Josh Allen, that saw Samuel break multiple tackles and make a move to get himself into the end zone. Add in a third Tyler Bass field goal, and that's how we get to the final of 31-7. So, look, after that first drive from the Broncos, offensively, nothing. And the thing was, they didn't even turn the ball over. They may have had a turnover on downs at some point. I'm sure they did. I just can't remember it right now in my head. But Knicks didn't throw any interceptions. There weren't any fumbles. So, just offensively, the offense just sputtered after that first drive. On the Bills side of things, Allen goes 20 of 26, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, adds 46 yards on the ground. Josh Allen did his thing. I believe the Bills are now undefeated in wild card games with Josh Allen as their quarterback. I want to say it's 4-0, maybe 5-0. Can't remember off the top of my head as well. But then you add in James Cook, who adds 120 rushing yards and a touchdown, giving Buffalo the balanced attack they need if they're going to have success in making a deep run into the playoffs and their road to hopefully making a Super Bowl. On the other side, quarterback Bo Nix, he goes 13 of 22, 144 yards and a touchdown in his first playoff game. Now, this game is going to be used as a learning experience and a stepping stone for Nix, as there were some bright spots in that game. There were some not so bright spots in that game for Bo Nix, and you can understand that. It's a rookie quarterback in his first playoff game. This Broncos team, I don't think many people expected them to be in the playoffs this year. But there they were. They made it in. They got into the playoffs, and they showed good signs early on of a very good team. And I think that this is a great game, a great learning experience game for Bo Nix for when Denver makes the playoffs again, because Nix can now say, I've been there. I understand it. I know what it takes. And I think he'll be more prepared the next time that Denver gets into the playoffs. Now, for this game, I only had one key because it kind of just went for both teams. And that one key was the Broncos being able to stop the Bills' run game, because it went vice versa, because then it was the Bills being able to run on the Broncos' defense. So, coming into the game, the Broncos' defense gave up an average of 96 rushing yards a game. Very good, very solid in today's NFL. The Bills surpassed that by rushing for a total of 210 yards, over doubling what the Broncos gave up on average. The Bills win, which finished off all of the AFC games, so the divisional matchups in the AFC are all set. The Houston Texans will travel to Kansas City and face the Chiefs on Saturday. Meanwhile, the Baltimore Ravens set up their matchup to go and face the Buffalo Bills. That game is on Sunday. So the AFC is set with some very good games coming over the weekend. Our fourth matchup during wildcard weekend came Sunday afternoon as the Philadelphia Eagles took care of business, beating the Green Bay Packers by a final score of 22-10. The Eagles got off to a hot start as the Packers fumbled the opening kickoff, which kind of told you just how this game was going to go. And that set up a Jahan Dotson 11-yard touchdown, his first touchdown since being traded to the Eagles. That was back during the regular season, and the Eagles were off and running after that. Jake Elliott field goal made it 10-0 at the end of the first quarter. Second quarter saw no points scored, just some punts here and there. Not a lot was going on. But what did happen on the Packers side of the ball during the second quarter, two crucial Jordan Love interceptions in the second. I know that the first one was they were across midfield. I believe they were nearing the red zone. Floats up a pass, gets picked off. Then right before halftime, again, they're getting their drive going. They're at about midfield. Throw it down the middle, picked off by the linebacker. Two very crucial interceptions that stalled two very good drives from the Packers. Luckily, the Packers were able to get a nice drive going and get a field goal in the third quarter. However, the Eagles quickly responded with a great drive that ended in a Dallas Goedert 24-yard touchdown that saw him stiff arm a man and carry some defenders on his way into the end zone. That was a great play from Dallas Goedert. Gets the ball on the outside, puts his hand into a defender. He's got guys, trying to wrap him up, and he was not going to be let down as he made his way into the end zone. And then the Packers put up another really good drive that sees Josh Jacobs score a touchdown at the very beginning of the fourth quarter, which gave the Packers some hope with it being 16-10 with still over 14 minutes left in the game. However, two Jake Elliott field goals and another Jordan Love interception put this game away for the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts had a pretty rusty first half. Didn't look right. He'd missed the last few games with a concussion. He wasn't able to practice a bunch this week because he was still in concussion protocol. So I think rust was, I don't want to say expected, but I think people thought it could be there. I think people also thought it wasn't going to be as rusty as it looked in that first half. But luckily the defense was able to step up for him. And then in the second half, he started to look a lot better. He ends the game 13 of 21, 131 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Saquon Barkley was the star of the offense, though, 119 rushing yards on 25 carries. Wide receiver A.J. Brown registered 1 catch, which is the same amount of books he was reading on the sideline. Yes, same amount. But he was not needed in this Eagles victory as they were able to take care of business. Other side of the ball, Jordan Love had a game he probably wants to forget, throwing for 212 yards and 3 crucial and just these interceptions that you can't have. The last one is fourth quarter, you're down, you're trying to make a play. I get it. But those first 2 interceptions are just demoralizing to a team when you're driving down the field and you throw that pick, loses all the momentum. Josh Jacobs, he was able to rush for 81 yards on the ground and was responsible for the sole touchdown for Green Bay. Now, what were my keys for this game, you might ask? For Green Bay, it was limiting the Eagles' explosive offense, which they did. I mean, let's take a look at some of the numbers and the stats here. If you told me Philly would score 22 points, go 2 for 11 on third down, have less total yards and less first downs than Green Bay, I probably would have said Packers got a real shot at an upset here. They got a real shot at winning this game. The Green Bay defense did their job by making Hurts uncomfortable in the pocket, and they took advantage of his first half when he looked rusty. They were able to force pressure on him, especially on third down, able to get them in third and long situations. So the defense did their job. They did what they were supposed to do by making Hurts uncomfortable. Saquon's always going to get his. You're not really going to stop Saquon. He's a hard man to stop anyways. So I thought Green Bay's defense played really well overall when you look at the grand scheme of how the game went. Now, however, the Packers offense could not help out their defense, which gets me into Philly's key to victory, which was make Jordan Love beat them, which is exactly what Philly did. Philly said, "Look, Josh Jacobs is going to go and get his. He's going to have a good game. But Jordan Love, when he drops back to throw, we're ready. We're ready for it. We're ready for him." And my goodness, they were ready for him. That, they were, this is when our defense is going to step up. And that's exactly what the defense did. Now, only 2 sacks from the defensive line. But man, was that secondary reading Jordan Love like a damn book. Like a book, causing those 3 interceptions. Cornerbacks Darius Slay and Quinyon Mitchell both did a great job on the outside. They both collected interceptions and both had pass deflections or pass breakups in that game. And Green Bay's leading receiver all day, Jaden Reed, with 46 yards. Now, they did lose Romeo Doubs early in that game to a concussion. Jordan Love didn't have his weapons. He already didn't have Christian Watson. Then he's missing Romeo Doubs. I get it. Things were stacked against him. But Philly's defense, they had the right game plan of, hey, if this guy beats us, he beats us. But we're pretty confident he's not going to be able to beat us. And he wasn't able to with those costly interceptions that he ended up throwing. Even though the Eagles' offense looked ugly early, they were still able to figure it out, and they advanced to the divisional round. Our 5th matchup, Sunday night finale, was an absolute masterclass of a game, seeing the Washington Commanders get the upset over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, winning by a final score of 23-20. Now, before I get into this recap, and how close of a game this was, let's see how I predicted this game real quick. So, I picked the Washington Commanders to win. So, I picked the correct team. I got the margin of victory, 3 points. However, I said 27-24. It was 23-20. It was so close. I was so close to getting that score right. But that, as I was watching the game and seeing all play it, I was like, dang, my prediction's pretty spot on right now, So I got the team, got the margin of victory. I was pretty happy with it. But anyways, getting into the recap, that was in the first quarter, only scoring that happened was a Chase McLaughlin field goal. But the second quarter is when we finally got some touchdowns. The first being Jaden Daniels throwing a 10-yard pass to Diami Brown, who had an absolute breakout game. He had 5 receptions and 89 receiving yards. I don't want to say come out of nowhere, but easily his best game of the season. And I know he spent a couple of years with the Commanders team, so it was really cool to see him have success and have a really good game when the Commanders needed him most. Zane Gonzalez adds a 52-yard field goal, but still left time for Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker puts up a great drive to end the half, which ended in a Mike Evans 1-yard touchdown with 13 seconds left until halftime. So we head to halftime tied 10-10. Then an early Zane Gonzalez field goal gave the Commanders the lead back 13-10. However, that very next drive, Baker goes 72 yards in 6 minutes, and that ends with the Bucky Irving 4-yard passing touchdown. So now they take the lead back. It's now 17-13 Buccaneers. The Commanders get a great drive go all the way down the field, and then they took a risk here, 4th and goal from the 3-yard line. And that Bucs defense held strong, forcing an incomplete pass. However, Bucs get the ball back, and a bad exchange between Baker Mayfield and Jalen McMillan results in Bobby Wagner recovering a fumble and giving all the momentum back to the Washington Commanders. And again, Washington has a 4th and short. This time, it's 4th and 2 from the 5-yard line. So they don't need a touchdown. They just need 2 yards. But this time, Daniels was able to hit Terry McLaurin for the touchdown, giving the lead right back over to the Commanders, 20-17. The Buccaneers had to respond, and that's exactly what they did. Drove down the field, kicked the game-tying field goal, just over 4 minutes left. We're tied 20-20. Now, stop me if you've heard this before. Jaden Daniels, game on the line, less than 4 minutes left, and he's got the ball. I feel like that's happened, almost every game for the Commanders this year. It seems like almost every game, it's, all right, less than 4 minutes, we're tied or we're down. Jaden, go win us this football game. And he's been able to, up to this point. He's been able to win them those games. But here we are, now we're in the playoffs. You're on the road. You're in a tough environment. How are you going to respond? Jaden Daniels, game on the line. And it starts out a huge grab from Brown. Again, on 3rd and 6, keeping the drive alive. And then 18-yard Austin Eckler catch, followed by an 8-yard run from Austin Eckler, put the Commanders in a great spot to win the game. Zane Gonzalez lines up for a 37-yard kick to win the game, and it's off the left post and in. It doinks in, and the Commanders win that game 23-20. Jaden Daniels absolutely balled out in his first playoff game. 24 of 35, 268 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, led the team in rushing as well with 36 yards on the ground. Along with Dyami Brown, Terry McLaurin also had 89 receiving yards and a touchdown for the Washington Commanders. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker goes 15 of 18, 185 yards with 2 touchdowns. Bucky Irving leads the team in rushing with 77 rushing yards. Mike Evans was obviously Baker's big target tonight. He hauls in 7 catches for 92 yards and the lone touchdown there. How about my keys to the victory? How did those play out for this one, you might ask? For the Commanders, I said the key to victory was limit big plays from Baker and Mike Evans. Washington did a very good job of that. Baker only had 2 passes all game that went for 20-plus yards, and 0 plays that went for 30 yards. Holding Baker to under 200 passing yards is definitely a win that the Commanders would have loved to hear if you told them that at the beginning of the week. Now, although Evans was heavily involved in the offense, they didn't let him get those really, really big plays. I believe his longest reception was 23 yards throughout the entire game. So, sure, he ended up with over 90 receiving yards, but they didn't allow that really big play that they always look for between Baker and Evans because they love throwing that deep ball to him. Washington was able to eliminate that and not make that a factor in this game. Now, what was Tampa Bay's key to victory? Make Jaden Daniels uncomfortable. Didn't really happen. You could see some nerves early on from Jaden Daniels, but those were quickly washed away. And then the Bucs weren't able to really get home. They weren't really able to get any pressure or make Jaden Daniels feel uncomfortable, as the pass rush was only able to get 1 sack against Jaden Daniels the entire game. And so a close, hard-fought Sunday night game sees the Commanders get their first playoff win since 2005. And those Washington Commanders are heading to the NFC divisional round. Now, our 6th and final matchup was Monday night in Arizona where the Minnesota Vikings would fall to the Los Angeles Rams by a final score of 27-9. My Vikings are eliminated. Oh, I have so many thoughts on this game. So this game was a complete domination by the Rams, really from start to finish, as their first drive only took 7 plays, and then Kyren Williams caught a pass from Matthew Stafford, and boom, they're in the end zone. Rookie kickers for both teams would exchange field goals, and the Rams would lead 10-3. Minnesota thinks they have a fumble recovery for a touchdown by Blake Cashman. However, the call is overturned and ruled an incomplete pass. So we're going to take a minute and we're going to digest this play. We're going to talk about this play a little bit because I think it's going to have lasting effects on more than just tonight. So let's gonna get a seat. All right, so let's digest. Let's talk about this play. Stafford has 2 Minnesota Vikings wrapping him up. He's fallen to the ground, and as he's going down, he lets the ball kind of roll off his fingers and quote unquote throws the ball about half a yard, maybe a full yard. I think a full yard is very generous. I think it's closer to like half a yard that the ball traveled. Now, I'm not going to debate if this is a pass or not, because frankly, I don't have the time, nor is it worth fighting over on if it's a pass or not. It's not worth fighting over because the game's over. Yeah. So I'm not gonna argue that. What I will debate and what I will talk about and where I think lasting effects can come in is intentional grounding. So I'm going to debate ruling it incomplete and not intentional grounding. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my phone and we're going to search up what the rule of intentional grounding says on the NFL website by the NFL rulebook. So I'm on operations.nfl.com. So I'm in the NFL rulebook. Rule 8, Section 2, intentional grounding. It is a foul for intentional grounding if a passer facing an imminent loss of yardage because of pressure from the defense throws a forward pass without a realistic chance of completion. A realistic chance of completion is defined as a pass that is thrown in the direction of and lands in the vicinity of an originally eligible receiver. Okay. So now that I've read that rule and rewatched that play, it's pretty clear that he is throwing a forward pass without a realistic chance at completion. Watch the play. I don't care if you're a Rams fan. Congrats, you won the game. But do not say, well, he was trying to get the ball to Nacua. No, he's not. Watch that play again, and when Stafford goes to let go of the ball, hit pause. Look at where Matthew Stafford is. He has 2 defenders wrapped around him. His head is looking at his shoelaces. And that's when he flutters the ball off of his fingers. So that's when he lets go of the ball. His head is down at his feet, and he flicks the ball. The ball, again, like I said, traveled half a yard, maybe a yard at most. The refs look at that, and they said, it's in the vicinity of Puka Nacua. He's 4 to 5 yards away. So, reading the rules on what intentional grounding is and rewatching that play, it has to be intentional grounding. That has to be the call. That has to be the standard call on that play. Right? When you read the rules, it's intentional grounding. Now, even though that was a big play and a huge momentum change in the game, I'm not going to debate like, oh, the Vikings would have won if that play changed. I'm not going to debate that. I'm not going to do that because frankly, who knows? Frankly, it's a hypothetical. I don't want to be arguing hypotheticals all that much on things that like can change, and that could have changed the past. What I will talk about is the future. Now, the NFL has now set their standard and precedent on this type of play tonight. I bet all those other QBs were watching the game and they were thrilled. They were thrilled to see that call, knowing they will have a chance to do the same thing, seeing as how it was called tonight. That other quarterbacks in the league are going to be able to do that same thing where they're about to go down and get sacked and they're able to just flick it. There's someone 5 yards away. I'm thrown in his vicinity, right? Because other quarterbacks are gonna do it now that they've seen how it's called, right? So when Patrick Mahomes and other do this type of quote unquote pass, and people get upset, and people are all up in arms about it, and they're so just upset and go on Twitter and tweet, oh, that's such a bullshit rule, BS, Just know the NFL made their bed with this call tonight. I mean, they made their bed tonight with this call. But I don't want to focus too much on that. It was just something I observed and something that I think might come back to haunt the NFL, or we might see some sort of rule change. Perhaps that could be a thing. But anyways, Vikings were never able to really get any momentum, and then a Jared Verse fumble recovery for a touchdown was the beginning of the end for Minnesota. The Rams add another touchdown before halftime by Davis Allen, and it's 24-3 at halftime all of a sudden, and energy is sucked out of the Vikings. A Jake Carty field goal would then extend the Rams' lead to 27-3 in the second half. The Vikings finally scored their first and only touchdown with just over 5 minutes left in the third quarter when TJ Hawkinson hauled in a 26-yard pass from quarterback Sam Darnold. And that's how we get to our final score. 27-9. Sam Darnold goes 25 of 40, 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and then the big fumble that he had. Hawkinson led the Vikings in receiving with 64 yards and the only Vikings touchdown. So since I am a Vikings fan, I do want to take a quick minute, go over their season just briefly. If you said at the beginning of the year that we would win 14 games, I would say, what quarterback did we trade for? Frankly, I would say, well, what big trade did we make? What quarterback did we land? They came in with the expectations of they're going to finish third, maybe even fourth in the division. Instead, they finish second. They win 14 games, and they make the playoffs in what was supposed to be a rebuilding or a retooling year for them. It sucks to see the way Sam Darnold played these last 2 games because he was having a career year, the best year of his career. But when we needed him most, he was unable to deliver for us. Now, with all that being said, the one positive-ish thing that has kind of come out of this is Minnesota has a very easy decision for the Vikings. They have a very easy decision for who's under center for the Vikings. Let Darnold go, because he's had 2 big games now to show you what he's made of, and he hasn't shown much, not much at all. Move forward with J.J. McCarthy as quarterback 1. Use that $70 million you have in upcoming cap space to re-sign some key defensive guys like Cam Bynum and others, and add some interior offensive line and roll it out with J.J. McCarthy, see how he does with this offense. On to the Rams side of things. Stafford, he was pretty surgical all night long. 19 of 27, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kyron Williams rushes for 67 yards on the ground. Tyler Higbee leads the team in receiving with 58 yards, despite leaving the game in the second quarter. I believe it was with a chest injury. So hopefully he's going to be okay for their next game against the Eagles, because they're going to need them. They're going to need him, especially. So what were my keys to this game? For the Rams, it was winning in the red zone, which is exactly what they did. The Rams scored 17 points in the red zone. Minnesota, 3 points in the red zone. The Vikings were not able to get to the red zone all that much, but when they did, the Rams held them to a field goal in their only trip to the red zone. And then when the Rams got in the red zone, they were able to capitalize and score not once, but twice in the red zone, along with adding in a field goal. Minnesota's key to victory was attack the young secondary, and that just didn't happen. Darnold held on to the ball for far too long, too many times, resulting in 8 sacks. Now, the Rams secondary, they looked confident, and they did a great job disguising their coverages to throw Minnesota's offense off. So, kudos to the Rams. They played a great game, and congrats to them for moving on. So, the NFC divisional round is all set now, with the Commanders heading to Detroit to face the Lions on Saturday, the Rams going to Philadelphia to play the Eagles on Sunday. So, overall, in my predictions this week, I went 4-2. Pretty happy about that. Could have been worse, could have been better. I'm pretty happy with that, going 4-2. My only 2 losses being picking the Chargers and picking the Vikings. But thank you so much for listening. I just want to give a huge thank you for everyone who listened to the first episode and enjoyed it. It truly means the world to me that you tune into the podcast and listen to this. If you're watching on YouTube, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Be on the lookout. On about Friday is when my next episode is going to be coming out. It's going to be for my divisional round predictions, and you will not want to miss that. And until next time, this is Joshua Nowakowski saying see you next time on the J Sports NFL show. Goodbye.